So for this week, it was either this or The Mummy, starring Tom Cruise, and considering that The Mummy has 17% on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment, I figured this would be the better option. So in that case, let's get into it. So Pirates of the Caribbean, Salazar's Revenge, or as it's known by its proper title in the US, Dead Men Tell No Tales. Salazar's Revenge makes it sound a little bit like the ride that it's actually based off of in Disneyland. So just as a little forewarning, we might start getting into a little bit of spoiler territory at some point in this video. If you're not really that bothered about having Pirates of the Caribbean number 5 spoiled for you, carry on as you were. Pirates of the Caribbean 5 is directed by someone who is not Gore Verbinski, which I feel is a little bit of a shame, because if it had been Gore Verbinski, I think it might have been a slightly better film than it was, because Gore Verbinski was responsible for the best of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, which is the first one, Curse of the Black Pearl. The first one introduced us to Captain Jack Sparrow, played by Johnny Depp, as he is in this film as well. Except in the first film, he was clever and witty, and yes, he was a little bit of a comical character, but that was kind of feeling like a front, so that people would drop their guard around him for him to implement some clever escape method. In this film, right from the start, you kind of feel like the joke's been taken a little too far, and I kind of felt myself wondering, is he actually just a problem alcoholic? And he's gone from being this really clever escape artist character to being someone who kind of stumbles through situations haphazardly and manages to pull it off. So it's a bit of a shame that he doesn't really pull off anything clever and kind of just manages to somehow accidentally, comedically get through these situations. If there was any reason in the world for anyone to go and see a Pirates of the Caribbean movie, it is the fact that Johnny Depp is in it. And he brings his usual Captain Jack Sparrow-y-ness to the role. It's just that the way this film is written doesn't have him being the character that he usually is, but instead it has him being a comedy act of someone who already was a caricature, but a likeable caricature. And script problems don't really just end there. The script problems kind of keep going. That's just the start of them. The plot points in Salazar's Revenge and the beats that it hits throughout the storyline are almost exactly the same as the last film. And it's kind of disappointing that a film franchise that started out so clever has now resorted to something which seems like carbon copies of the last film. It's just that the character names and the MacGuffins and the places that they're in are interchangeable. And that's not how a Pirates of the Caribbean film should really feel. I want to be looking at a Pirates of the Caribbean movie going, this is something completely different. This is something really original. I never really felt like anyone was in any actual jeopardy, more that they were just on the run from someone. And the jokes that got repeated throughout the film kind of wore thin. They didn't really hit that well. There were a few jokes that landed, and again, the jokes that landed mainly came from Johnny Depp. And even the whole opening comic sequence of them stealing a safe kind of felt really overblown and far-fetched, even by Pirates of the Caribbean standards. I was watching it and I felt like this has kind of been taken a little bit too far by this point. To have the overblown comedy aspect felt like it was being shoved down the audience's throat a little bit. Like, remember how funny we are. Remember how Captain Jack Sparrow can get out of anything. Remember this. And I kind of felt like, we do remember. That's why we're here. That's why we came. And on the note of the characters, I feel like the connections that the characters have in this film were only really their kind of sentimental value, and in a way, nostalgia value, to bring back connections from previous Pirates of the Caribbean movies, so that everything almost gets tied together nicely in a little package. But again, I kind of felt like it wasn't entirely necessary. I felt like the characters played by the two newcomers to this franchise were almost there as carbon replacements of the two who were in the last film, who were the replacements of Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley from the original trilogy. I really hope they weren't paying Keira Knightley by the line for this film, because she didn't actually end up saying anything at all. Orlando Bloom got a few lines in this film, but really, I mean, was there too much point in having them turn up other than for the sake of going, oh, they're back from the first film. Brilliant. There they are, still living a life. Now, credit where it's due, Javier Bardem does play a brilliant villain in this film, and Javier Bardem is brilliant at playing villains. He's really CGI'd up for this film in a flashback sequence with young CGI Johnny Depp. They basically get this ship that he's on into this cursed area, and it gets blown up, and everyone on the ship dies but doesn't die and is just cursed. But there's no explanation as to where the curse comes from or why. It's just there. So it's just a curse. That's what it is. And thereafter, the Trident of Poseidon, in order to lift the curse, which has the power to lift the curse of all sea curses that have ever been in existence anywhere, which is why other characters are after it as well, and certain characters have to get there first before other characters catch up to them and kill them in order to get it for themselves. So, pretty generic by this point, which is a little bit of a shame, because if there's one thing a Pirates of the Caribbean film shouldn't be, it's generic of itself. I expected it to at least be better than the previous film was. It's not necessarily better, it's not necessarily worse, it is actually kind of just the same. Stuff happens, it's great to look at, you get a few little laughs out of it, but ultimately anything that has come out of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise after the first one hasn't managed to live up to the greatness that was Curse of the Black Pearl. So ultimately, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales / Salazar's Revenge is worthy of 2 stars. I don't feel like I will really remember this next week. In fact, I kind of feel like I will get parts of the storyline from the previous film and maybe even the one before that confused and mixed up together, because they had very similar plot points, very similar characters, and ultimately a lot of them are relatively forgettable by this point. And with that, I feel we need to say a fond farewell to the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. You had a good run, but I feel enough is enough. So, Pirates of the Caribbean 5. Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Would you go and watch another Pirates of the Caribbean movie? Or do you feel that this is it now? Do you feel like this is enough of the franchise and they can walk away from it happily by this point? Whatever you think, comment below, and we can talk some nerdiness. As always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more in the future, don't forget to hit subscribe to stay updated with future videos from me. And until that point, I will see you next time. Yarr!